And we are live. Hello and welcome to Forever Sports. It is Thursday afternoon. We are 48 hours away from kickoff. And I tell you what, on the back of some very interesting news yesterday, I think that the Boks are definitely going to be very motivated for the game this weekend. But I want to talk about a little bit more about that tomorrow in our Friday live show, which is going to be a bit of fun tomorrow. Today I want to be talking about the players that need a bit of sort of prove a point, inverted commas, and kind of looking a bit into the team selection and maybe a little bit into the future with regards to how this tour might start to show which players are on the way out, which players are on the fence, for example, and which players are pretty comfortably within the selection frame for the World Cup in a couple of years' time. So I'm going to put a question out there, and my question is, which player is under the most pressure this weekend? And it's not trying to be a negative thing about it. I'm just interested to see which player, for example, of the ones I'm going to give, is maybe the most unlikely, I suppose, to right now in terms of the selection frame. What is which player needs to show something this weekend? Which player are we sort of worried about the most with regards to whether they can get to the World Cup in a couple of years' time? So I'm going to give a couple of options, and I want you guys to make the call about what you guys think. And this is basically based on what the feedback I've been seeing in comments and the likes of that, and different hot takes across the board. Kind of talking about players who have been coming in under pressure, for example, and players who might not make the next World Cup. And based on sort of this form, for example, as well, who's kind of maybe not guaranteed a spot. And I'm going to throw a controversial one in there. Not one that I believe is under any sort of pressure, but a lot of people keep talking about the fact that Martin Ebok still needs to prove something, which I don't think he does. So I'm trying to debate whether I'm going to put out a Martin Ebok part or a Damien Delendi. From an age profile point of view, Damien Delendi is probably more under pressure from that regard, as well as probably better players or better performances recently from Andre Esterhuizen, possibly throwing in the mix. But I'm going to throw in Martin Ebok as a bit of a spanner in the works, just because that's a player who I've seen getting the most, inverted commas, flack of players who, age-wise are fine. So those are the options I'm going to put out there. And I want to see what you guys have to say. And I can see you guys already basically well ahead of me talking about Franco Master, Lourdes de Jager, because I think those are the two, for me, who are probably under the most pressure to perform this weekend. Going to some of the comments earlier on, Mikey Larry said, how's it going? Guess asking, anyone ready for the Backlash? We're going to be talking about the Backlash tomorrow in our Friday afternoon stream, and talking about the motivation when we kind of preview really the game. Have a look at Japan, for example, which players to look out for, and kind of what we need to expect on Wembley, which, by the way, we will have somebody on the ground on Saturday, so don't worry. We will have press conference, stuff like that. Unfortunately, we are having to really deal with a lot of adversity this week with regards to a bit of a media blockout coming from SA Rugby, and but we are organising people, and hopefully it will be covered for the rest of the tour. Mikey Larry said, Michael Leach is 38 and really impressed me last week. He won a turnover and had to catch his breath first. Classic. Josh Owens reckons Jesse Creel's under pressure. Alpha Lincoln talking about Sos. BPO Photography talking about centre pairing. Mikhail says definitely Sosis and Lurt. Mikey Larry said Zachary Portland has a lot of pressure on him this weekend, sink or swim. I mean, I think he does to a certain degree in terms of justifying the call-up and becoming a Springbok. Different type of pressure, isn't it? He's out there to prove that he is of test quality, not that he is still of test quality. So maybe it could have been a different type of vote if we had thrown him in there. Again, I think a different type of pressure to what we're talking about with the other ones. Jan HB Hugo talking about Jesse Creel. Sheslin saying Stamen from a starting point of view. Yeah, I mean, interesting different sort of aspect to that, isn't it? With regards to, is Arcus Neyman, I wouldn't say under pressure, but it's a big opportunity for him to show that he is a genuine option to start. And potentially is a genuine number 4 option to back up Evan Etzebeth. And given the fact that you got like a Jean Klein is coming back into the mix, it's an interesting scenario to be in, because we're searching for that number 4. a genuine option. You know, if Evan doesn't play, who's the number 4 option? And we've looked at so many different options this year. Even we've had Lewis starting at 4. You've had Salmurat starting at 4. Arthur Snyman starting at 4. So we've had 3 other players we've looked at in that exact position. Kubas Visa is an option as well. Hasn't really got that a chance in number 4 option. But I mean, so what did I say? I said Lewis, Archia, Kubas Visa, and then obviously Salmurat, and then Jean Clay we actually haven't really seen this year because we haven't actually seen him in a block jersey this year because of injury. So that for me continues to be a big question mark. Who is the number 4 option where if we go into a World Cup final without Eben Etzebeth, we can go to and be like, perfect. You know, we're actually happy with this. And Archie Snyman's got an opportunity this weekend to show that he can do it from the get-go. And it's not just an impact player. He's more than just, you know, your Kwaka Smith, for example, off the bench, that he can offer you a starting position. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Kwaka Smith, for example, I mean, he did start a while back, and I thought he had a very strong game. He's actually had a very strong season, if you ask me. I think he continues to be the best player off the bench in World Rugby. And even as a starter, I think he offers us a lot. I just think he obviously offers so much more when he comes on against tired players because he's just got so much energy. And maybe just doesn't manage to get that half an edge more when he does get that starting role. But yeah, go and vote on that poll and let me know what you're kind of thinking, where your head's at with that point of view. Derek says Jesse Creel. Josh Horan says Jan Kobler needs to prove that he deserves to be a consistent Springbok. K3A says how's it? Reckon Sos has banked a lot of goodwill. Phenomenal servant to the jersey, but yes, he's not played at his best recently. Well, he has got 65% of the votes with regards to players, which is quite a majority. Yes, there's only 23 votes and there's over 50 people watching, so let's get those votes going. But I agree with you. I think that Franco Masters is just such a banker of a player. You know, and I think that they'll keep him around because he's just so reliable. He's never been the flashy Eben Etzebeth type of hallmark. Oh my goodness, that was. I mean, I'd love to see how many man of the matches Franco Masters actually has because he just does all the grunt work. And I think that he's probably one of the most and now we're starting to get his flowers. And maybe it took him to kind of get into the end of his career that we've kind of really sort of reflecting on just how good he's been. But I mean, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I think if he's had more than 4 Springbok man of the matches in his 75 tests, I'd be surprised. You know, in fact, I'd probably be surprised if it's more than 2 or 3. I know he has had a couple. I know that he was man of the match against, I think it was Wales last year. And he was man of the match a couple of years ago. Who was it against? I think it was against England. Obviously, the big thing for him was when he was named player of the series. He's named one of the player of the series for the British and Irish Lions series. Was probably the biggest, best player for the Boks across that series. I mean, he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But his versatility has sometimes also killed him a little bit in terms of he's just been so useful at being able to start at 5 or come on at 5. He's been able to cover 7, for example, like he did in the British and Irish Lions. He is one of the older players. I don't think his level's dropped, to be honest. I thought that he played quite well against Wallabies in that second test, and I don't think we've really seen him enough this year to be able to give an honest opinion. But at the same time, the fact that we haven't seen him that much could also be an indication that, you know, is his level dropping, for example, or are we worried that he's not going to make the next World Cup, and thus are looking elsewhere? And I think that's where, you know, if that is the case, for example, that's where the pressure comes in. It's not so much a case of he needs to prove he's good enough. He needs to prove that he is at such a high standard still that we can back him for the next World Cup. That he needs to consistently play and that he's going to be a part of the next World Cup. Because if he's not, that's when they'll start to look at other options. And Ruan Nokia has taken his chance and with both hands has been absolutely brilliant. So I think that somebody the other day said, well, I'm worried about our lock depth. And I was like, I couldn't disagree more. You've got Eben Etzebeth, you've got Ruan Nokia, you've got Franco Mostert, you've got Lua Diago, you've got Archie Snyman, you've got Jean Clay, you've got Kubas Visa, then you've got Salman Murat, then something like a Ruben van Heerden doesn't even feature at the moment. You still got something like a JF van Heerden youngster coming through. You've got so many options. I think that Ruan from Mark's been brilliant for the Bulls. I think that lock is absolutely brilliant. The problem is, the reason rather why people sit there saying we need new locks is because we've had the Fab Four, who I think at a stage were probably 4 of the 5 best locks in the world, alongside maybe like a Brody Retallick. If you go back to like 2019, I think they were playing at that kind of level. Definitely 4 within the best 8 locks in the world. And I mean, it was just an embarrassment of riches, which is what started the 6-2. And as a result, because they've just been so good and so consistent for so long, we haven't seen other locks. We saw Jean Klein come in for Louis Diaga in the last World Cup. Some Emirates had some opportunities. We've now seen Ruan Nokia come through, but Ruan Nokia is the first real new young lock we've had come through the ranks in a long, long time, because these 4 have been so good. And we've also seen Peter Steph the Toy move back to lock when we've needed him. So it's a position where I don't think it's a problem, but I can see why people have started saying, "Oh, we need more locks," because we just haven't seen a lot. You go look at, I don't know, your props, and I mean, in the last, let's try and count. In the last 2 years, the props that we've seen: Oxenchair, Gerard Stennekamp. I'm going to try to do Lucids first. Oxenchair, Gerard Stennekamp, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Bowen Venter, Instutukunu. Let's go Thomas the Toy. Lucids. Tight heads. Then we can go Volko Low, France Moherber, Nettling Verschier, Asnat and Tlabakanye. Now we're going to see Zachary Porthen, Trevor Nyakane. Who else have we had? I'm missing props. Give me some props, people. Give me some props. I'm talking about the physical position, not giving me credit. What other time? I'm already on 12 props, by the way. 12 props. I've got more. I'm missing some. Said Trevor, said France Moherber, said Nettling Verschier. But yeah, Vincent Koch, 13. There we go. Vincent Koch, 13. I said Thomas the Toy. Anybody else? But yeah, that's 13 props that we've seen in the last 2 years. 13 to cover essentially two positions. If you look at locks, I don't think you see more than 6, maybe 7. The Fab Four: Archer, Lurt, Franco, Eben. Then we've seen Salmon. Well, Jean Klein actually hasn't played since the World Cup. But Kubis, I don't actually. Kubis even started lock. Well, let's see. Kubis Vies, Ruan Nokia. That's about it. Peter Steph the Toy. So we've had 7/8 locks probably in the last couple of years, where we've had 13, probably 13 plus. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Props. So that's where I talk about the fact that we've just got the lock depth. There is lock depth, but because we've got such good core group, we haven't had to look really extend. Whereas because our props have gotten injured and getting a bit older, we've had to definitely cast the net a lot wider and look at options. I mean, if we look at even like center options or wing options, for example, just this year, we've had Kurt Lawrence, Cheslin Colby, Ethan Hooker, Cheslin Colby, and we've had somebody else start on the wing. Maxwell Mapimpi. There we go. So that's 5. And it might even be 6. And that's just a year of players who've played in the wing. Plus, Grant Williams has also come on at wing at 6. So, we're talking about in this 10 matches this year, we've probably seen 6 or 7 different wings, whereas in the last 2 years, we've only seen about 7 different locks in almost twice the amount of tests. So I hope you guys are understanding the point. It's a very nice position to be in. And that's why I think that there's no pressure on Franco Mostert in terms of, is he good enough right now? The question mark that they're asking is, does he make the next World Cup? Because you could go to the next World Cup. If he doesn't make it, Ruan Nokia comes straight in, bang, there are your 4 locks. So Jean Klein's around there, bang, there's lock number 5. You could have had Marvin Oily, who was back in the thing. You've got Kubas Vies who can step up. You've got, a Salman Murat, for example. So you've got your locks pretty sorted. Going to some of the comments, Albert says, sorry, don't have the big kahunas to go outside the URC and take them to court over Jan-Hendrik Wessels. They are probably bound by contract agreement to stay quiet and exempt anything Ireland decides. Yeah, listen, that's going to be a very interesting situation. because obviously they're not going to be happy with the decision. Rassie's already come out and challenged it. But again, we've only just become full members of the URC. You don't really want to rock the boat too much, but it is a very frustrating verdict. And yeah, something we'll probably talk a little bit about tomorrow. Alvin Lingus says, lock is definitely not an area with locks have a problem. Ruan Fenton, under 21 locks, all waiting in the lock shadow. True. K3A says, think 8 is the position I'm concerned about, need some backup for Visa as well. But then also mentions 8 is a problem. I think 8 is a problem this year, but we've had a very weirdly large amount. We've had a very large amount of injuries at 8. We've tried to said what we would have liked to have seen from a 8-man point of view this year would have been Jasper Visa, we've seen Sirkalisi, we've seen Kubas Visa was a weird one, but we've seen him. Evan Roos. We would have liked to have seen Jean-Luc Dupré potentially at 8, but he's obviously also had issues. We've seen Kwagga Smith. We would have liked to have seen Joanna Augustus. We would have liked to have seen Cameron Honeycomb. We might have seen Ulrich Lowe. So there are definitely options at 8. I just think we've had a very weird set of injuries. At 8, if everyone's fit, I don't think we worry about 8. But the problem is that we're sitting there going, Jasper Visa is just here, and everybody else is kind of there. No one's really, from a starting position, been able to produce what Jasper Visa does for the team from a role point of view. Kwagga Smith, very different type of player. Gives you that breakdown option, much quicker around the park, Not quite the barbaric, will steamroll 125 kg lock in front of him type of player that Jasper Visa is. And there's no doubt for me that Jasper Visa is our best 8. I don't think it's a doubt anyway. He's come back in and after that ban, which was very frustrating, and was just so good against the All Blacks, that we all sat there going, "Yep, there's a number 8." And I think his ban was a bit harsh, to be perfectly honest. So, and I think it was a bit frustrating. It was silly though. It was really silly, and he's got to sort that out. I do think it was a bit of a ridiculous ban for what it really was, but he is, for me, definitely our number 1 choice. Mikey Lewis says, I agree. It's not that we don't have options. It's just that we need someone who is established as a solid backup at that level. Yeah, I think that's the problem, isn't it? We haven't been able to establish somebody else or several other options because of the injuries. We haven't been able to give JL Dupré 4 or 5 games or 3 or 4 games at 8 and give him that exposure. We haven't been able to get Cameron Honeycomb playing. Because Cameron Honeycomb probably would have played 5 tests by now, off the bench or starting. Probably would have played at least 2 to 3 tests. So ideally, if he was fit, Cameron Honeycomb probably would have played 7 to 8 tests. That's what he's lost out on this year. Plus the Barbarians game. So there were 16, Bok games. He could have played at 8 or 9. And that means he wouldn't have necessarily have had to play against Ireland, France, All Blacks times 2, even in Australia, or, you wouldn't have had to play the big games and still could have easily gotten an 8 to 9 tests. Could have played both games against Italy, could have played Georgia, could have played against Wallabies 1, Argentina 1, could have played Wales, Japan, Italy again. So that's the frustration. And the same thing with Jean Augustus, not being able to be released as well was a problem with the injuries, and then apparently release issues and stuff like that. So he would have liked to have given that option as well. So it's been frustrating from that regard in number 8. Hopefully next year we will see a much better injury record with our number 8s, and they'll be able to build that depth. That's what I'm looking for. BBO Photography says, we also have a problem at 13. I don't think it's a bad shout, in fairness. You've got Jesse Creel, you've got Caden Moody, and after that, Damien Delaney, for example. We've got young 13s. Obviously, Creel's been really good at the Bulls. Henk van Wyk is once again threatening to be that world-class in the making option. He's not actually that even young anymore, but we got to get him involved. I think that he would. I think he would have been on the fast track to the next World Cup if he hadn't had the injury issues. He's 25 next year though, so he really needs to start staying fit. But when he plays, he looks like $1 million, doesn't he? Lorenzo Julius, what an exciting player he is coming through at the Sharks. I think Wendell Similani is a wasted talent that has moved around too much and not gotten things right for him to become an option. We obviously always have the, in case of emergency, smash glass option to go back to to Kanya but we all been saying the same thing, and it's just that he's just not quite the Kanya that we remembered, isn't it? And it's sad for that to happen, but it is also part of the game, and you can't let sentiment get in the way of your performances and the likes of that. Yassine Baker says Box should throw hands versus Japan and say they'll grab by the balls just to prove a point. Yanni Brown saying looking forward to Zachary Porthan. Yeah, I think that for me is a very, very exciting pick for this weekend. He's as I said, we're talking about the tight head version for me of Jan-Hendrik Wessels. A proper a baller. Let's call it a spade. A spade. He's a baller. He is not as big as a Wilco Louw. Look, he's not a small guy by any means, but he's got the skill set. We are seeing a whole different type of player in the younger generation. Players are no longer, we're seeing the same thing in flower halves. We've gone away from players who are just very, I wouldn't say basic, but your big, brutal, straightforward, confrontational type of players. The skill set of our younger players is getting much, much better, which is a really positive thing, by the way. It is a really good thing. But that's why all of a sudden we're seeing the mobility in our younger, tighter five players. You look at the athleticism of Jan-Hendrik Wessels. He moves around like a flanker. He's got that pace. He's got that work rate. He's got that cardio, that fitness to be able to move around like that. And yet, when I was seeing him scrum well, Zachary Porthan, I think, is going to be quite a similar type of player. He's 124 kgs. That's not massive for a tight head. When you've got Wilco Louw, Asanati, north of 135. But he's quick around the park. I mean, there's that try score at 20 where he sold the dummy, put in the step as well. He's got a very good burst of pace. And we're seeing a new generation of players coming through. If you look at Morgan Nordier at the Lions, for example, it's a very similar type of player. Smaller, good skill set. And we're seeing a lot of that come through. What's interesting is the fact that they've got to be able to make sure that your primary focus, which is scrummaging, does not let you down. So that'll be the big question this weekend is can Zachary Porthan, and he's not against the best, front row in the world, but can he get that scrum dominance and then can he add in the loose? Because there are some seriously good and gifted young props in this country, but we're not seeing your behemoths, your Frans Maherbers, your Asanati and Klabakanyes, your Trevor Nyakani. It's just these massive human individuals who are barbaric almost in the way that they are just so big and so difficult to stop. And at scrum time, they just absolutely decimate you. We're seeing a different type of generation. I think it's very interesting to see how rugby is starting to become a bit more, I wouldn't say it's a bit more likely, but we are seeing more athleticism across all the different positions. And I think the modern game is demanding that. It is getting quicker. You do have to have a better skill set. You do have to be more mobile. France, for example, the Dupont law allowed them to have your Unai Antonios, your massive, you now got your you got locks at 140 kgs, your Meerfus and the likes of that, just giant human beings, and they sort of just kick and allow their pack to kind of catch their breath. And what the box basically did is say, we're not going to kick it back to you. We're going to keep moving you forward. That's what we call for the scrum. We're going to move your scrum around. And, laws are changing to kind of negate having these massive packs. And the box are having to try and weigh up reducing the size of our pack, going with Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who is not as big as if you started Thomas du Toit at Loosehead, as if you started a Trevor Nyakane at Loosehead, but not compromising your scrum whilst doing it. So you've got to find those hybrid players who are able to get around the park and be so impactful in the loose, but also at scrum time, we still want to have the best scrum in the world, and we do. So that's where Don Human's job is becoming so much more difficult, because it's not just, he's now having to turn players who are maybe not traditional props, and then I'm not saying the power of traditional props, but you have to get their technique right and to make sure that they can then do a job. And it can be done. It can be done, but it is different to when you think of 2023 and you had Beast and Tyrera, Stephen Kitsoff, Frans Maherber, Vincent Koch. I mean, Vincent Koch was the most mobile of the lot, and he is. I mean, you call him a Superman. He's got a decent turn of pace, but they're all big props. If you then had Jan-Hendrik Wessels next to Zachary Porthan this weekend, they wouldn't suddenly look like your traditional front row. But obviously, they offer so much in different respects as well. Going to back some of the comments, SVG says we have a temporary pod eliminate that should be sorted out next year with the return of Hanekom, Low, Christus, De Prier, and of course Ruiz, who is starting for the Barbarians this weekend. Should be quite a cool game, by the way. Lots of South Africans. It's based like a South African A side this weekend. Christian says Ruiz and Augustus are available. If we have an 8 class, they can come in already, 100%. SVG says no problem at 13. Julius, Henker van Wyk, Sebastian de Klerk besides Creel and Moody. Mikey Larry says, what happens if Cheslin puts in a man of the match performance at 15? Does he become a legit option? We saw how people's opinions changed about Damien plus Creel just after one stellar performance by Damien. I'll tell you what, Damien Willemse at 12 has always been my passion project. I love it. I think he's just such a good 12. I do also think he's a phenomenal 15. So what I think is exciting is that it gives you the option of saying, well, we can start Colby at 15, start Damien at 12. What I would like to see, what I would really, really like to see, and I think that's where I'm very interested to see how Andre Esterhuizen comes in. I think we are going to start seeing a shift towards traditional positions. And what I mean by that is I think we're going to start moving towards a situation where players will do roles on the field, not assigned to their numbers. And what I mean by that is Damien Willemse can start at 15. But Damien Willemse can also, on the back of a line-out, scrum, set piece, run a 12 channel. Cheslin Colby can start on the wing, but actually sort of monitor it full back on defense for that counter-attack option. Or even on the attack, he shifts back into that 15 role, comes off his wing, and maybe, one of the centers shifts to the wing. I think we'll see a lot more of that happening. Andre Esterhuizen, for example, coming off the bench as a flank, will we still see him at first receiver? Because often we do see flanks in the midfield coming off the back of lines, especially in the last few years. You'll see a Ben Earl in the midfield. You're going to see a Siya Kolisi in the midfield, try and get those big, flanks running in the midfield. So just because Andre Esterhuizen is coming on a flank doesn't mean he can no longer go to the midfield. I mean, we've seen the Boks, whilst a man down, go to a 7-man scrum and add somebody to the midfield. So could we see, for example, a 7-man scrum and Andre Esterhuizen, who's come on as a flank, goes to the midfield and provides another option? And all of a sudden, you've actually got a numbers advantage. So I think that we will start to see a completely new type of use of players in the coming future. And I think that's very exciting because it just adds to the unpredictability and means it's so difficult to anticipate what's going to happen with the Boks, having so many players who can do so many different roles and can just interchange so quickly. Albert says, Australian fields for 2027 are very fast, and the 10-man rugby that worked in Japan and France World Cups won't work, plus rule changes is forcing Rassie to go more mobile. Tia says, Stevie, were you a back or forward? Surely pick up the phone if Dr. Rassie called. I've had a very interesting and yet not particularly glorious rugby career. I played club as a lighty for about 2 years, where I played on the flank. When I got to high school, I went to a school where they didn't have rugby in the prep school. You only started really playing in high school. I started inside centre and then moved to fly half. It's just the magic of his hands, it's the skill set and the vision. Let me cook. So I played about 3 years of fly half, and then I actually moved to hockey because I was a much better hockey player than I was a rugby player. And then I played a little bit of varsity at 8th man. So I didn't do the traditional family role of lock, despite my height. I wasn't that tall in school, but yeah, we moved to the pack in varsity, and I played a bit of res league. But I mean, yeah, if Sasha goes down on the weekend and they need Mani 2.0, I'm available. Could be the heaviest Springbok fly half in history. Me and Bush James, right up there. BPO Photography says, what if we start 9 Williams, 10 Mani, 11 Orange, 12 Williams, 13 Moody, 14 Colby, 15 Sasha? Don't you talk dirty to me on the live stream. I mean, that's just on attack. It's even actually defense that could work. Now, this is the exciting thing, is that is a very, very good option and a very feasible option. Whether we'll see it exactly like that, who knows? But we could see something relatively close to that quite soon, to be honest. Even, we've seen Willemse at 12. I think Willemse and Moody at 12-13 combo could be a very one moving forward. So I don't think that for example, that 6 combination of players is a pretty good one. Hungry Lion says, as Andres says, regarded as an open side flank or a blind side, if a blind side, is there a possibility that he jumps in a line out? I think in theory is a blind side. I don't think we're going to see him jumping in the line outs. Maybe he's been practicing. I don't know. Who knows? Not. I think you'll see him lift more than jump, to be honest. Probably easier to teach somebody how to lift in the line than to get the jumping part right, because it's all about timing at the end of the day. There's no update, unfortunately, on Asanati. He is playing for the Barbarians this weekend, which kind of shows you that I think a lot of people are expecting this. I'm really, really hoping that a lot of people are expecting this appeal or hearing to go well, because he's been playing for the Lions the entire time. He's been picked for the Barbarians. So I really, really hope we don't suddenly see a ban from him. I think it's the entire situation for me is, it's a complete slap. I think it won't slap on the wrist. I think he himself did nothing wrong. He was given the wrong information by respected people, and yeah, the onus is always on you to make sure and to double check. But, you also, at the end of the day, the guy hasn't done a medical degree. So when you are working with people trained in that area, you are seeking out specific professional advice within. It's not like he's gone to a random doctor in the city and they've given, he's got advice from individuals in the environment that should know better. So he's done his due diligence. He's done whatever he should be doing. He's sought the right, inverted commas, medical advice, but given the wrong things, most of them not performance enhancing. One, which is a slight weight loss thing, how big of a difference that makes, who knows. So, but I really hope that we don't see something major, because he's got such a big rugby career ahead of him, and it'll be such an injustice if we don't get to see it. K3A says, Eddie Jones has experimented with positionless rugby. Do we ever see football-style squad numbers instead of position numbers? I mean, wouldn't that be interesting? And just watching Oaks just start boxing for numbers and the likes of that, it would be quite funny. I'd be interested to sort of see who would go with. I mean, surely CF, for example, locks down that 6 jersey. Surely Eben locks down that 4 jersey. So are we going to see like a player running with like 42? Or is it going to be like squad numbers 1 through to 33, like England football do that for the World Cups? They allocate their squads 1 through to 16 or 18 or whatever, or 20, I think, these days. And you can't choose 33 or 54. You get allocated 1 through thing, and your senior players get to pick their jerseys, which is why Harry Kane's always 10, for example, for England. But it would be interesting to see what happens with that. Hungry Lion says, I'll give Colby a go at scrum off instead of taking 4 scrum offs to the World Cup again. Maybe give Colby the 9 jersey against Wales. Yeah, I think wouldn't be surprised if we do go with 3 scrum offs to the next World Cup. I think the 3 we've got at the moment probably the most likely. Hendrick stuff for me is completely fallen off the radar, and it seems as if Faf's not quite in the setup anymore. But hey, we're going to wrap it up there, people. Thank you very much for joining me. We will be live tomorrow for a Friday afternoon stream. Might even open a beer on stream and have a good time. So please come and join me then. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well.